Tamashudevam priyaya vihinam Kshama payadvam hridividam duruktaihi. Please chant. Ladies. Anybody else? Please repeat word by word translations. Ashasanaham, wishing to ask. Jivitam, for the duration. Advarasya, of the sacrifice. Lokaha, all the planets. Sapalaha, with their controllers. Kupite, when angered. Na, not. Yasmin, whom. Tam, that. Ashu, at once. Devam, Lord Shiva. Priyaya, of his dear wife. Vihinam, having been deprived. Kshama payadhvam, beg his pardon. Hridi, in his heart, in his. Yes. It's a little bit misprint, it's like printing error. Vidham, very much afflicted. Duruktaihi, by unkind words. Translation, and later purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Brahma also advised them that Lord Shiva is so powerful that by his anger all the planets and their chief controllers can be destroyed immediately. Also, he said that Lord Shiva was specially sorry because he had recently lost his dear wife and was also very much afflicted by the unkind words of Daksha. Under the circumstances, Lord Brahma suggested it would behoove them to go at once and beg his pardon. Text number 7. Naham na jagyo na cha yuyam anye ye deha bhajo munayaschattatvam vidu pramanam balavirya yorvha yasyatma tantrasya ka upayam vidhish set. Translation. Lord Brahma said that no one, not even himself, Indra, all the members assembled in the sacrificial arena, or the sages, could know how powerful Lord Shiva is. Under the circumstances, who would dare to commit an offense at his lotus feet? Purport. After Lord Brahma advised the demigods to go to Lord Shiva, and beg his pardon, it was suggested how he should be satisfied and how the matter should be placed before him. Brahma also asserted that none of the conditioned souls, including himself and all the demigods, could know how to satisfy Lord Shiva. But he said, it is known that he is very easily satisfied. So let us try to satisfy him by falling at his lotus feet. Actually, the position of the subordinate is always to surrender to the Supreme. That is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord asks everyone to give up all kinds of concocted occupations and simply surrender unto him. That will protect the conditioned souls from all sinful reactions. Similarly, in this case, Brahma also suggested that they go and surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. For since he is very kind and easily satisfied, his action would prove effective. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padambajo Radhamadana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratangara Simhasanasto Śrīmad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtalivi Samimano Smarami Śrīman Rasarasaram Vivam Sivataratasthitaha Karsham Veno Swanar Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read again the verse. Shri Shri Plalakshmi Singari Bhagwan Ki Jai. Lord Brahma also advised them that Lord Shiva is so powerful that by his anger all the planets and their chief controllers can be destroyed immediately. Also, he said that Lord Shiva was specially sorry because he had recently lost his dear wife and was also very much afflicted by the unkind words of Daksha. Under the circumstances, Lord Brahma suggested it would behoove them to go at once and beg his pardon. Lord Brahma said that no one, not even himself, Indra, all the members assembled in the sacrificial arena, or all the sages could know how powerful Lord Shiva is. Under the circumstances, who would dare to commit an offense at his lotus feet? Hare Krishna. So we're reading a very interesting section from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is the story of Daksha and his great offense against Lord Shiva. So in the previous chapters, we have heard how the sacrificial arena of Daksha was destroyed. And the reason for the destruction was because in the very onset of this episode, Daksha is confused because of his family relationship with Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is married to Daksha's daughter Parvati and or Sati, and because because Sati is actually the previous birth of Parvati. Parvati means she's the daughter of the Himalayas, but in her previous birth she was the daughter of Daksha. And Daksha did not fully approve this marriage. He was making too many, you could say, material assumptions or judging Shiva superficially. So usually when there is a marriage, people, the parents, they like to see the daughter especially married to somebody who is responsible, who has some material qualification or wealth, and if there is not such a situation, maybe they will hesitate or maybe even try to stop it, or also sometimes there might be even bargaining, if there is some, the mid-gift, how you say in English, the dowry, dowry. So the dowry in the Bhagavad Purana, it's written that the dowry should be, it's a symbol of gratitude, and it can be a flower or a fruit, depending on the capacity of the family. But sometimes families bargain for dowry, a car, a fridge, a house. And if the dowry is not good enough, then no marriage. So this is a very, materialistic, very superficial tendency. And Daksha had this tendency also, So Daksha was thinking, this Shiva, look how he's dressed, this will be, I have to be ashamed for every family function, This guy is coming, he's wearing skull garlands, he's smeared with ashes, he has matted long hairs, he has snakes crawling over his body, So he was not fully enthusiastic, to give his daughter to Shiva. He did not understand the position of Shiva at all. So he made an offense, he started insulting Shiva because Shiva did not stood up when he entered the assembly, So usually it would be good custom or general behavior. If your father-in-law enters the room, you should stand up and greet him, But in this case, Lord Shiva is of course in a transcendental position, and he was also absorbed in meditation, it is explained. So he did not even notice that Daksha entered the assembly. So Daksha entered the assembly and Shiva did not stand up. And Daksha took offense. He was thinking, this is my son-in-law. What kind of son-in-law? I knew it. I knew it. I knew that he's not a good character. So he started offending Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva then just stood up and left. And the followers of Shiva started cursing and counter-cursing. Happened between the followers of Shiva and the followers of Daksha, or you could say the demigods. So this was a very immature escalation, but we can see even among such exalted personalities, conflict of escalation can occur. So if you're not careful, very easily we get, in the heat of the false ego, we lose our intelligence and discrimination. It is explained when we become angry. And anger is usually a source. Its source lies in frustration, and frustration comes when a certain desire is not fulfilled, or lust is not fulfilled. The more the lusts or some desires that we have are, interrupted or obstructed or not fulfilled, we become more and more frustrated. So this frustration ultimately leads to anger. And in the Bhagavad Gita we hear the sequence, how last born out of the mode of passion is the all-devouring, enemy of the soul, basically, because it leads to anger. And once we are angry, something very peculiar happens. We lose our intelligence and our discrimination. So that means that we act in a way that we usually very soon regret. So whenever we become angry, it is said that we express anger. Generally, emotions are expressed through the working senses, and especially with anger, it becomes very obvious. So the working senses are the hands, the feet, the tongue, and also the genitals. So usually you might start, speaking first harsh words, the tongue, you might insult somebody, or that anger is expressed, through punches, you start fighting, or maybe even kicking, So through the working senses, this anger is expressed. And once that anger is released, usually, very often that happens, you regret it, Like, let's say you become very angry because of something, and you kick, and then you destroy something nice you have in your house, Happens regularly, People become angry, they kick, and then the nice Chinese porcelain vase, smashed. And like, oh no, and then you regret it, So that's the nature of anger, And when you are angry, we lose our intelligence and discrimination, and we do stupid things, very stupid things. And of course, in this case, it's really bad because Brahma is giving advice now to the demigods. Brahma and Lord Vishnu did not attend this ceremony because Shiva was also not invited. So they could foresee something very inauspicious, happening. So they did not attend. So when now all these demigods, after Lord Shiva had destroyed the arena, not himself, he actually sent his an expansion of himself known as Virabhadra, very powerful form of Lord Shiva, Virabhadra, with many arms and red eyes. He and all the followers of Shiva destroyed this arena, So that means it was a big sacrificial arena, many sages and thousands of people gathered. And the attack was devastating, Everything was destroyed, many people were injured. So they all went to Brahma to seek, consultation, shelter. And Lord Brahma said, not at all sentimental. He was like, what did you expect, out of anger, and false ego, you insulted Lord Shiva, So here Lord Shiva, Brahma was saying that Shiva is so powerful that by his anger, all the planets and their chiefs could be destroyed. So this is the position of Shiva. So we have the three guna avatars. We have Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, Rajaguna, and he's in charge for creation and expansion, and also population, to populate the universe. And actually Daksha is one of the sons of Brahma, and his duty is to assist Brahma in his duty of populating the universe. So it's in the mode of passion. Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, destruction, annihilation. So Lord Shiva has this very famous drum, everybody knows. Shiva has a trident, that also everybody knows, but maybe some people don't know he also has a small drum. And when he plays that drum, it's the time of dissolution. So he will dance. There's a very famous song, Shiva Tandava Stotram. When you hear the rhythm of that mantra, you know how it might feel when Shiva is dancing. It's very powerful, but if the wrong person is in the way, there also will be destruction. So it's the duty of Shiva to destroy the worlds, to annihilate everything. And there's a partial destruction and a final destruction. In both cases, Lord Shiva's duty is to execute this destruction. So he's in charge of the mode of ignorance, but he's not in the mode of ignorance. That's very important. That's a mistake that Daksha did. He's in charge of the mode of ignorance, and he's Ashutosh. This was also explained in the previous verse, that he is Ashutosh. So Ashutosh means that very soon he can be Toshani, he can be satisfied. If somebody performs a small, ritual or offers prayers, Shiva can very easily grant wishes, but also Ashutosh indicates that he can also very easily be angered. You have to be careful. Lord Shiva is very immediate, you could say. There's no much delay. If you make a mistake, you will feel it, and if you are working correctly, he will reciprocate also very soon. So because he's so liberal, all these living entities who are in a mode of ignorance, they take shelter of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva, to just even his Mahadeva, he's basically the Lord of the worlds. He's the most powerful entity in this world. He is he's wealthy also. Everything belongs to him in one sense. He's Mahadeva, but still he chooses to live very, very simply. He dresses himself, with skin of animals, and he smears his body with ashes. Sometimes also he's running around like a Naga Baba, completely dressed only with the air, like Prabhu's name is Nigambar. So his external appearance is one of detachment, and this is one of the qualities of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is known to be, of course, wealthy, beautiful, powerful, but also detached. Detached. So Lord Shiva very much personifies that detachment. He's completely detached. Even he's so powerful and wealthy, he does not display any of that wealth. He is always living very, you could say, purposefully. Living a very simple life. Not only simple, you could almost say purposefully confronting people with the temporary nature of this world. So if somebody is smearing his body with ashes from the crematorium and putting a garland of skulls, that's trying to tell you something. So in the Eastern philosophy, there's a very famous book that many people in the West were studying, especially in the 70s, the Tibetan Book of the Deaf. You might have heard about this book, relatively famous. So the Tibetan Book of the Deaf. So what is this all about? It's because in the Buddhist tradition, which is related to Vedic tradition, there are different aspects of this philosophy that try to confront us and make us aware that actually we are all mortal and we will all die. So I once saw a very interesting film that was showing how when a monk, who is living in a monastery, you could say a Buddhist brahmachari, the head of the monastery realizes he's not qualified to be a brahmachari, He's not qualified to be a brahmachari, so we have to introduce him to worldly affairs, and he should get married. So before he does that, they send him to a very special place. So this is like very remote place where a monk is keeping, the art of Kama Sutra. So he should learn. He's a monk. He has no idea, but he should learn how to perform sexual activities. So they bring him to that place, and they show him all these, pictures, and then they hold these pictures against the light, and then all these bodies depicted are shown with skeletons. So it's a very interesting therapy. So he's shown the sexual activities, but at the same time, when you hold these pictures against the light, you see that each of these bodies actually have skeletons inside. So it's alluring and shocking at the same time. So this is what Shiva is depicting. Shiva is, you could say, on our face, reminding us that we are mortal. We are mortal. We tend to be in this illusion or you could say not an illusion, because you could say theoretically and intellectually we all know that we will die. It's a fact of life. Nobody would dare to deny it. There might be some endeavors to avoid it or to extend our lives, but generally everybody says, yeah, of course I will die also. But Yudhishthira Maharaja says that even we know that, we act and behave as if we were immortal. So we are not consequent. So we're not consequent. So if we truly realize and understood that we are mortal, we should be a little bit alarmed or a little bit more serious. And sometimes people, when they get a death notice, they become a little bit more serious. Let's say you go to the doctor and they find some, a terminal disease, and the doctor tells you, within 3 months you will die. And then, people react in different ways. Some people say, okay, I'll take all my savings and I will travel to all the places I wanted to go. I have this bucket list, so I'll go everywhere and try to enjoy, till the last minute. Or if you have some spiritual knowledge, you might realize, okay, maybe I should focus now on the essential aspects of life. Or many people who have a bad conscience, they go to all the people they have cheated, they give money back, they ask for forgiveness. This is also very common. In any case, when you get a death notice, you change, and your character shows, what you really have been suppressing or delaying to do. So Prahlad Maharaj famously said that we are all old, because none of us know when we will die. So therefore we should all consider ourselves or behave ourselves as if we were old. Because it's not guaranteed that we will all become reach, you could say, our full old age. It's likely you might die sooner. So Prahlad Maharaj's recommendation therefore was that we should always consider ourselves on the verge of death. We should not illusory think, later. There's this very funny cartoon that was published some years ago, I think in Back to Godhead magazine, where there's a small child and somebody's asking, chant, and then there's the caption, too young, it's too young to chant, it's too childish, wants to jump around, wants to play, and then, a little bit later, the person is studying and working, so again the proposition is that you could chant now, too busy, too busy, too busy to chant, and then later, you're sick, you're old, the vital energy has left the body, so too old, and then you're in the grave, and then it's too late. So like that, we tend to procrastinate, we procrastinate so many things, but we might forget that the real thing we are procrastinating is actually spiritual activities. We tend to procrastinate for all kinds of things. In German they say, morgen, morgen, nur nicht heute, sagen alle faule Leute. Tomorrow, tomorrow, not today. All lazy people say. That's a German saying. So, but we have this tendency, tomorrow, tomorrow I'll do it. Tomorrow I'll become serious. Tomorrow I'll start becoming more spiritually inclined. Tomorrow I'll read more. And very soon we realize the older we get, the faster time passes. This is also reality of life, that time is relative. For a small child, a year is very, very long. And all the year they're asking, when is my birthday? When is my birthday? It's taking so long. I'm waiting already. But it's been just a month ago. You have to wait 11 months. And it's like, oh no, 11 months. And my grandmother was getting annoyed. It's like, again Christmas. It was just yesterday. So the older you get, proportionally, 1 year is a smaller portion of your life. So for a 1-year child, 1 year is 100% of his life. For a 2-year-old child, 1 year is 50% of his life. For a 100-year person, 1 year is 1% of his life. So life passes very fast. Time is relative, and if you're not attentive, very soon time is gone. And this is also one form of Shiva. Shiva is known as Mahakala. Mahakala. He is, or Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also says, Kalosmi. I am the all-devouring, destroying time. And in its destroying aspect, it's Mahakala. Shiva is Mahakala. He destroys everything. He's the destructor. Everything is destroyed by time. Huge empires. We cannot even imagine. Sometimes we are very proud of our modern success. Modern civilization. Modern way of life. Electricity, internet. Artificial intelligence, smartphones. Airplanes, cars, so many things that we have achieved. But this modern civilization is very, very young. Very young. You could say maybe a little bit more than 200 years. A little bit more than 200 years. And in the past, there were empires, in India or in the Middle East or in Rome, the Greeks. Many of these empires lasted sometimes for hundreds of years. Sometimes over 1,000 years. And they're all gone. They're all gone. So the power of time is insurmountable, and we are in this illusion that we think we will be here forever. And actually another explanation that Srila Prabhupada also gives is that, of course, instinctively we think we will be here forever, because we, the soul, are immortal. But what we forget is that we identify with the body, and the body is not immortal. So this is the confusion that we are in, that we confuse our material identity, our temporary identity, and we try to connect this material identity or try to accommodate it with our innate sensation that I should be here forever. But the reality is that this face, this body, this gender, this nationality that we have right now will not be there forever. Not at all. So, and this was the famous conversation that Yudhishthira Maharaj had with the Daksha, or Yaksha, that he was asking, what is the most astonishing thing in this world? And the most astonishing thing is that even we see every day and we hear every day, people are dying. We see people going into into death, or like sometimes I heard about soldiers. Soldiers are in the battlefield and they're fighting and they see people dying. They still somehow have this feeling, I will not die. I have to just fight a little bit harder. Everything will be okay. So at the face of death, everywhere, we still behave in such a way that we are as if we are immortal. And of course, like I said before, the reason is because ultimately we are immortal. The spiritual soul will not die. So if you have spiritual knowledge, death is not something we try to suppress or something we try to avoid, or something we don't talk about. Or something we just overrule by, being very active in this world. But death is just a transition. And there's this very funny story of this devotee lady, true story. She came to the doctor and the doctor told her she has a terminal disease. So the doctor said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you will die. I don't know, within a week or a few months, And then the devotee reacted, very peacefully. She's like, I also have a message for you, doctor. You will also die. Maybe a few years later, but you will also die. So if you have spiritual knowledge, this external change is not something we try to suppress, or pretend it's not going to come. But actually, we see it maybe even as an opportunity. Like Parikshit Maharaj, the whole premise of the Bhagavatam is that Parikshit Maharaj was destined to, or cursed, to die within 7 days, and he took advantage of it. So this is the most wise decision. And actually, this is the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you know. So what should you do if you know that you will die soon, you know? And then the decision is clear, you know. You should take shelter. And this is actually, I think, also, I forgot the exact wording, but one of the first questions Parikshit Maharaj asked the sages, you know, and also Shukadeva Goswami, you know. You know, what should one do at the face of death, you know? And you could say Prabhupada interprets it as a general attitude we should have towards life, because we will all die, you know, eventually. And you know, we perceive, you know, maybe 100 years as a long time, but in comparison to eternity, or in comparison to other living entities, you know, like for example, I'm always amazed at the lifespan of trees, you know. There are trees on the planet right now that were alive when Caesar was there, you know. There are trees alive on this planet that were there when Krishna was on the planet, you know. You know, there's olive trees in Greece, they are 8,000 years old, you know. Or the redwood trees in America, they are 2,500, 3,000 years old, you know. And this is 100 years for a tree. You know? But we are in a human form in Kali Yuga, so our body will last around 100 years, you know. In the best case scenario, 100 years, maybe less, you know. So, yes, so Brahma here is, you could say, giving all this, you know, all those who were taking shelter of him, all the demigods, all the followers of Daksha, he was giving them a reality check, you know. He was telling them, you know, you were playing with fire, you know, you dared to, you know, offend Lord Shiva, you know. He's able to destroy all of you on all the planets you live upon, you know. How dare you, you know, what do you expect, you know? Basically, you had a good deal, you know. You only have a few scratches, you know, not too much happened, you know. He could have destroyed all of you, like, full annihilation, you know. That's his work, you know, that's what he does, you know. So, and on top of that, Brahma is saying, you know, he is afflicted, you know. His wife passed away, you know, you know, because of your offenses, you know, and also the unkind words of Daksha, you know, had left still a mark on Shiva. You know? So, what did you expect? Basically, that's what Brahma is saying. And then in the second verse, the Brahma is establishing a very clear hierarchy. You know, he's saying myself, or Indra, or all the members assembled, we are. How does it put it? 1 second. Yeah, not even myself or Indra, you know, could understand how powerful Lord Shiva is, you know. So he's saying, not even myself, you know, even he's one of the guna avatars. You could say in tattva, or in the hierarchy of position, Brahma is a living entity like you and me, and Shiva is his own tattva, and Vishnu, Krishna, it's the ultimate tattva, or the highest. So Brahma is establishing this hierarchy very, very clearly, you know? And this is especially important to understand, because sometimes the tendency is there to pretend, you could say in popular Hinduism, that all the gods are the same, you know? But they're not, you know? Brahma himself is saying, I have no idea how powerful Shiva is, you know. So Brahma obviously is admitting that he's not as powerful, you know. And Brahma is the most powerful among all divinities, you know. Among all the devatas, Brahma is the head. He's the Lord of the universe. He's the one who, you know, from whom everybody emanated. So he's saying, I have no idea how powerful Shiva is. Shiva is much more powerful, you know? So there's a clear hierarchy. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada expresses it like this, where he says, Brahma also asserted that none of the conditioned souls, including himself and all the demigods, could know how to satisfy Lord Shiva. So I've recently observed in social media that there are some people who do not like the word demigod, you know. some Indian influencers or YouTubers, they said this word demigod is not fitting. It's a bad word. We should not. It's a misnomer. Misnomer means that it's not giving a clear idea. And especially because, of course, the word demigod in Western tradition is used usually to denote somebody who is half human and half God. So in Greek mythology, you have Hercules, for example. So Hercules is the son of Zeus with, I forgot the name of his mother. So that's a demigod. So he's very powerful, superhumanly powerful, because he's half human, half God. So when we use the word demigod, we don't use it in that context. So if you understand the context in which Prabhupada is using it, then it's very sensible. Because God, when Prabhupada uses the word God, God is referring to Paratattva, to Parabrahma, to ultimately Vishnu or Krishna. And sometimes Shiva would fall in that category as well, because Shiva is also addressed as Bhagavan in the Bhagavatam. But Shiva is a category for himself. In the Bhagavatam, in Numbers, it's put like this, that the living entities, like you and me, and including Brahma, or like Prabhupada is saying, Brahma asserted that none of the conditioned souls. So beginning with Brahma, that's where the conditioned souls begin. We're all conditioned here in this material world. Conditioned means that we have 8 elemental layers filtering our consciousness. So whatever we think, feel, or want is not truly what we really want. It's filtered by a certain amount of conditioning. And if you are Brahma, your conditioning might be less. If you are, a dog, your conditioning is more, and so on and so forth. Depending what kind of body we have, our consciousness is filtered. But we're all conditioned. So we're all conditioned. And all of these conditioned souls, when they reach the level of Brahma, Brahma in its ideal position at the end of his life when he gains liberation, it's 78% of the qualities of the Supreme. And then Shiva is described as being its own tattva, so that would be Jiva tattva is 78%. Shiva tattva has 84% of the qualities of the Supreme, and then Vishnu himself has 96% of the qualities of the Supreme, and Krishna is 100%. So this categorization is very clearly explained in the Bhagavatam. So when we use the word demigod, it's just to make a very clear distinction that there is Bhagavan, God, who is supreme, who is Vishnu Tattva or Krishna Tattva, and the category of God should not be confused when a Jiva Tattva has a lot of power. So there are different demigods, like for example Shanidev. Yesterday was Saturday, and in India on Saturday you always will see these people, they're running around with this oil tank with a Shani Murti or Shani cut out of tin, and they run around and you throw, and many people throw coins because especially if they are in their Shani Maha, what do you call it? In the Shani, what do you call it, the big period of Shani? Mahadasha, yes, thank you. Then people are very afraid. So if they see somebody running around, they take the opportunity. Let me give a donation. Maybe Shani will be more kind towards me. So Saturn, is very, or the sun god, is worshipped also in many different Vedic traditions, many rituals. Even the sun god sometimes is considered to be Narayan himself. Surya Narayan. Not necessarily, but very often also the sun god can represent directly Narayan. But the sun god is still a position that is occupied by different entities at different times. So generally it says in each Manvantara, a different sun god will also take over. So Vaivasvata Manvantara means Vivasvan is the current sun god. The moon god, or all kind of different entities, Of course, generally you could say you can divide the sections of worship in traditional Vedic tradition into three main sections. There is Shaktaism, there's Shaivaism, and Vaishnava. So Shaktaism, they worship Mother Earth, Shakti, Devi, who is here now the wife of Lord Shiva. But Shakti also appears in the the original form of Shakti is Radharani, then Lakshmi, Sita, and in some ways you could say we are also Shakti worshippers, because when Gaur Mohan, the father of Srila Prabhupada, was teaching his son, in the very beginning his mother was very keen on sending Prabhupada to the West. He should become a barrister, go to London, become a lawyer, gain some reputation. In the British Raj, that was a good career, from Calcutta to London and back to Calcutta, then you have a good position. And Gaur Mohan said no, he should learn Mridanga and he should become a devotee of Radharani, So not a devotee of Krishna, a devotee of Radharani. So we are Shaktas, Shakti is very important for us, Lakshmi Devi, and we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We first chant Hare, Hara means the universal mother. So, but some people try to focus on worshipping Shakti by herself, without the connection to Purusha. And it is possible because Mother Nature, in her form as Durga or Kali, is a real deity. It's a real entity. They're all real personalities. You just have to understand the consequences, of taking shelter of Shakti. She can also fulfill your desires, similar to Lord Shiva, but she is even more ferocious if you make a mistake. Because what we have to understand, Shakti, she's female, of course, and she is the mother. So as long as you approach her like a mother and take shelter like a mother, usually there's harmony. But our tendency is in reality that we try to exploit material nature. So if you try to exploit material nature, that's not how you behave towards your mother. So if you try to exploit material nature, by, exploiting other people, exploiting nature, or stealing, or cheating, or whatever it might be, any form of exploitation that you perform, you will be in big trouble. If you pretend to be a devotee of Durga, but at the same time you try to violate her, she will treat you accordingly. There are many stories, great asuras who took shelter of her, and if they misbehaved, she made, in Germany say Kurzenprozess, no long judiciary, she just, she has 10 arms, it says, Mother Nature has 10 arms. With these 10 arms, she's protecting all the 10 directions, the 8 cardinal directions, and then up and down, and nobody can escape. That's the meaning of the word Durga. Durga means a fortress, but a fortress can also be a prison, depending which side of the wall you are, depending how you're locked, depending which side the lock is. So yes, this material world is a prison, and at the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, this is explained also very nicely what the relationship is between Durga and Vishnu. And also some people in India don't like to hear that, but that's the beginning of the Bhagavatam, and that's, we consider the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to be the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the Vedas and Upanishads. So the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam begins with this, with the same aphorism as the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadyasya Yata. And very shortly after that, one of the first chapters is the story of Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is depressed, or you could say not completely happy, not completely satisfied. Even he has compiled all the Vedas, He has compiled all the Upanishads, all the Upavedas. He has compiled, Mahabharata, all the different texts. He's still not satisfied. He's not satisfied. So his spiritual master, Narada Muni, gives him clarity. And the way he gives him clarity is by giving him a vision. And the vision that Vyasadeva sees is how all the living entities, in this material world, we are trying to control and we are trying to enjoy in this world. But it's not working for us. We are failing again and again. And no wonder, because we are not the ultimate controllers. It's like when you look at small children, trying to accomplish something, and you can observe that they're not capable yet. So in a similar way, when we are conditioned and try to be happy in this world and try to control everything, or it's also like sometimes you see people building construction on not so good soil. The foundation is not good. Like in Vrindavan, the entire what do you call it? The flood plains. Every river has a flood plain. It means it looks like the river is very small, but when the rain comes, the river will become much bigger. But some people think, oh, the river has not been here for many years. I'll build a house here. So, but if you have knowledge, you're a little bit older. So it's not a good idea. No, don't put a house there. And then it happens. Like this year in Vrindavan, everything was inundated. So we have this tendency that we think we can, build roots here. We think we will be here forever. We behave as if we will be here forever. Again, like in the beginning of the lecture. One example one devotee once gave was really funny. It's like if you go to a train, you're on a train journey, and you have your compartment, and you start painting the walls. I don't like this color, so you paint the walls, and then you look at the blue cushions, this cheap plastic, like this is not nice, I think I brought some velvet, so I'm going to put some nice silk velvet on top, make it more comfortable, So anybody who is observing that, they will say, what are you doing, your station is approaching, and you have to get out of the train. But that's how we behave, we try to make ourselves very comfortable in this world, while in reality, everything is temporary. So now I lost track. I took too many side branches. Demigods and yes, Durga. So we are all suffering under the power of this material energy. So Durga Devi has a trident. This trident represents the three tapas that we suffer in this world. We suffer from within. Either we have fear or anger, or the body. Our own body will create some troubles. Then there are troubles from outside. Mosquitoes. Very relevant now. They're annoying us all the time. Especially when there's rain. And now we also have since a few years. I don't know if it's scientifically proven, but we have observed that since 2 years there are flies that bite. Have you encountered them already? They're normal flies, but they actually bite, and it's very painful. It's like a mosquito. You feel it for some time, and it's like a small pinch. But this bite from these new flies is very annoying. Or fight between neighbors. Germany is very much known for that. If you build your house, 3 centimeters higher than allowed, you will have a neighbor who's measuring it and will denounce you. And then you have to tear down your house, because you didn't follow the rules, because he wants to have that half a minute of extra shadow, or not extra shadow, like extra sun, You build your house 3 centimeters too high. Now I have more shadow in my backyard, It's not allowed, or wars, like now between Ukraine and Russia or Sudan, or so many conflicts. So there always will be conflicts between, entities, nations, species, and ultimately there's sufferings that will come from nature, or from a divine source, like excessive rain, excessive heat, earthquakes, when an earthquake comes, who has experienced an earthquake? Yeah, not too many. Well, most people. So when you experience an earthquake, you really feel very small, Suddenly you realize, oh my God, everything is shaking, everything could break apart, like between my feet, it could open up. I never experienced such a heavy earthquake, but we had mud houses in Peru, and after every earthquake we had to fill the gaps in the house. So this is the power of nature. This also brings a lot of suffering. And the reason is because there is individual karmas, and there's collective karmas. A certain community, a certain geography, they have a collective karma. It's not by chance that you're born in a certain area where suddenly there's drought for everybody, or war or whatever. So this collective karmas creates, also reactions from nature. There's a very interesting book written by a devotee, Amin Rishi, and the book is called Mutter Erde wehrt sich, or Mother Earth is, wie sagt man wehren? Defending herself, Mother Earth is defending herself. And in this book is basically trying to explain in simple terms that, if we behave in a certain way towards nature, there will be a retribution, and that's what I was explaining before. Mother, Durga Devi, she's inflicting those pains. She's not only defending herself, in reality she's punishing us, She's inflicting on us those 3 forms of pain. They are inbuilt in this material reality. They're part of the, stay within the Durga or prison. And then in that vision, Vyasadeva is seeing how everybody's suffering, like that, under the powerful influence, of Durga Devi. But then he also sees that this same Shakti, Durga Devi, is offering prayers to Lord Vishnu. So that is that's the realization of Vyasadeva, that, or what Narada Muni then explains to him. You should write a book which only focuses on devotional service to the Lord, because this will create the ultimate harmony. All other different Vedic injunctions or Vedic traditions, they are somehow, you could say, mixed with some selfish desire. Some selfish desire. I want health, I want wealth, I want success, I want to have piety, I want to have a long life. Whatever it might be, in the Bhagavatam we try to avoid any selfish desire. So it should be pure devotion. So when we, you could say, focus in that way, true happiness is possible. So this is the beginning of the Bhagavatam, is telling that as well. I forgot this verse, unfortunately. But in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, that's what it's saying. This is the ultimate activity that we perform. This is the topic of the Bhagavatam, to learn to perform the activity that will give us true, enduring happiness. And that happiness does not come when we chase it in different material forms. If we chase it in different material forms, like wealth or reputation, influence, power, all of that is not really going to be happiness. But if we manage to connect to the Supreme, then we are truly in harmony with nature. So that's the idea. Mother Nature is connected to, in the form of Durga, she's praying to Vishnu. So if we do the same, we are in harmony with nature. And this is later explained also in the Bhagavatam, when Mother Nature, as our also direct deity, Bhudevi, and in the form of a cow, is being mistreated. And in that section, Srila Prabhupada explains a lot, how we should actually, it's the perfect sequence of purports to be environmentally conscious. the way we treat, a cow, like a mother, the way we should, behave towards the planet, should be very conscious. This is, you could say in summary, I would just say that all the different demigods, they deserve respect, but they are denoted as demigods, or in Sanskrit devatas, because they are individual entities like you and me. In other words, you could also become, a devata. It says if you are, for example, celibate for 300 lives, celibate, 300 lives, you can become Surya Bhagavan. You can take the position of the sun god. And, or Indra is easier. And that's why Indra regularly is very afraid, When some sage is performing great tapasya, he's saying, oh, this guy, he might take my position, So he tries to undermine him or distract him, So the position of Indra, Surya, these are all positions we can attain. Brahma also. It even explains in the Bhagavatam that at the beginning of our material odyssey, we were all Brahma. We started as Brahma, in the highest position, and then we got entangled in the samsara. So that's the wheel of samsara, 8,400,000 different species of life. It begins with Brahma. And the smallest is Indragopa, small microbe, Indragopa. So Indra, the king of heaven, Brahma, even more powerful, and the bottom is Indragopa, small microbe, and between there, so many different species of life, so many different forms, and we are in a samsara chakra, it's a wheel, it's repetitious, we're going up and down again and again. So, if we want to exit that wheel, we should take shelter of a pure devotee like Lord Shiva, and ultimately, follow his example to take shelter of Vishnu, Krishna. Then we can transcend this wheel of samsara. What time is it? Is it 1:45? Oh, I talked too long. I was just telling, it's 9:12 already? I was telling him yesterday we should stop at 8:45, and now I'm giving a very bad example. I'm sorry. So, Grantaraj, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.